So, you bought your first starter kit, you brewed your first beer, turned out great. It's amazing. Friends can't get enough, they can't stop talking about it, but you're not happy. You're a discerning brewer and you want to know, what can I do to make this beer better? What is the alcohol content? What is this haze? What can I do in general to make this beer better? Well, the good thing is that these questions are all answered pretty simply. Hi, I'm Brad with Brewing TV, and today we're going to go over the Mad Brewer upgrade kit. It contains a lot of things here that are going to help you improve your brewing and your beer. One of the most intimidating pieces of brewing equipment to a new brewer is the hydrometer. But don't be afraid. Despite its scientific nature, it's not as scary as you might think. In the most simple terms, a hydrometer measures sugar content. During the fermentation cycle, yeast consume these sugars to create CO2 and alcohol. If you know how much sugar you have before fermentation begins and how much remains after fermentation is finished, you can calculate the alcohol content of your beer. In distilled water at 60 degrees Fahrenheit, a hydrometer floating in a sample will give you a specific gravity reading of 1.000 and a potential alcohol reading of 0%. If you add sugar to water, like when you add malt extract to your brew, these numbers will increase. Let's say you brew a simple IPA. If you take a reading of your brew before fermentation, you might see a specific gravity reading of 54, or 1.054, which is also read as 1054. This is called your original gravity, or OG for short. After fermentation is complete, you take another reading and find your hydrometer is floating at 1.010 or 1010. This is your final gravity, or FG. Every specific gravity has a potential alcohol value associated with it. Placing your thumbnail on your OG and spinning the hydrometer in your hand gives you a corresponding potential alcohol of 7%. This number means that if all of the available sugars in your beer were fermented out completely, you would have an alcohol percentage of 7%. But your beer finished at 1.010, which by turning the hydrometer, you can see has a potential alcohol of approximately 1.25%. So, 7% minus 1.25% equals 5.75%. And this is the alcohol percentage of your IPA. To calculate your alcohol percentage directly from your specific gravity numbers, simply take your original gravity, subtract off your final gravity, and multiply that by 131. This will give you a calculated alcohol by volume. The best way to take a sample from your fermenter is with a thief. First, sanitize and then assemble the 3 pieces of the thief. Next, place the narrow end inside your carboy or fermenting bucket until it is submerged in the liquid. Place your thumb over the opening to create a seal. Finally, remove your sample from the carboy and place it in the test jar along with your hydrometer. Once you're done taking the reading, throw out the sample so you don't risk infecting your brew. Not only do hydrometers help you figure out your alcohol percentage, but as you gain more experience in brewing, they can be a really valuable tool in helping you diagnose and troubleshoot problems that may arise in any given part of the brewing process. Along with using blow-off tubing with your carboy, another great way to prevent a mess during primary fermentation is to use FermCap. This anti-foam agent reduces head retention in solutions, which can help prevent fermentation from foaming up and out of the top of your carboy. It can also be used during boils to prevent boilover, a sticky mess that nobody really wants to deal with. You only need a few drops per gallon in the boil or during your fermentation. Once fermentation is complete, the FermCap will settle out onto the bottom of the fermenter and will not affect the quality, taste, color, or head retention of your beer. Haze in a beer can be an aesthetic problem, and it can also compromise flavor. There are several fining agents you can use to turn a beer like this into a beer like this. First off, there's Whirlflock tablets. These are essentially a tabletized version of Irish moss, and added during the boil, these can really help to significantly cut down on haze in the beer. For best effect, Whirlflock should be added to your brew about 15 minutes from the end of the boil. As your brew is cooling, it will work to remove particles from suspension, which you will then leave behind when you transfer into your primary fermenter. If your beer's still hazy after fermentation, you can add some biofine clear. This will really help to clear the solution. You can add about 1/4 teaspoon up to 2 tablespoons of biofine a few days before bottling in order to get a bright and shiny beer. John Palmer's How to Brew is one of the best resources out there. It'll help brand new brewers and veteran brewers alike. This book will cover information from never ever having brewed a batch of beer all the way up into pretty advanced all grain techniques. I really highly recommend this book. So at the end of the day, brewing beer is relatively simple. You're going to take water, malt, hops, and yeast. If you add them together in the correct way, you're going to have some pretty awesome beer. If you don't quite get it right and you don't treat your fermentation well, you're still going to get beer. Probably not going to want to share it with a whole lot of people. So do yourself a favor, get yourself the tools that you're going to need to make great beer every time. Cheers.